Hello everyone! This video gives a short introduction into the rules of my new random character playthrough. The general rules are pretty simple. Our starting character is going to be the deprived, and as always the first task is escaping from the asylum. So we get out of our cell. Talk to Oscar, Knight of Astora. Kill the asylum demon with the starting weapon. And take the Crow Taxi to Lordran, where the actual character randomization will start. For this I have written a small program, the Dark Souls level calculator. Each time we arrive at a bonfire, we will make use of this program. On the right hand side we can see our current character type, which at the moment still is our starting character. On the left hand side of the window we can see our current stats. We are at soul level 6, all stats like vitality, attunement and so forth are at level 11. Now that we have reached the bonfire with 2288 souls, we can use them to level up. But instead of deciding what to level up, we will enter the available souls into the entry field of the program, which will decide for us what to level using a random number generator. So we enter the available 2288 souls, confirm, and the program then decides randomly how to attribute the available souls. In this case, the program tells us that we have to put one level into faith and one into strength. The highest level decides the character type. If there are several stats with the same maximum level, which is the case here with 12 strength and 12 faith, the program will choose randomly which of the stats with the highest level will decide the character type. On the right hand side we can now see our updated character. Based on this first leveling, we initially have to play as a Cleric. Other possible character types are Survivor, in case that Vitality has the highest level, Pyromancer for attunement, Tank for endurance, Brute for strength, Assassin for dexterity, Doombringer for resistance, and Sorcerer for intelligence. Each character does come with specific rules, which can be seen by clicking the rules button. So here we can see the rules which we would have to follow from now on until our character type changes again. As a sorcerer, we have to mainly use sorceries as our main weapon, which requires a catalyst. We also have to put all our efforts into getting weapons that have intelligence scaling. For example, the Channeler's Trident, Velka's Rapier, the Moonlight Butterfly Horn or the Moonlight Greatsword. Archery is not allowed. All characters are also forced to use specific rings, which for the Sorcerer are the Bellowing Dragoncrest ring and the Duskcrown ring. In terms of playstyle, this character has no real restrictions, but our routing should lead us towards acquiring more sorceries. Of course, if we have no catalyst or sorceries, obtaining these is the highest priority. This means if we have to start as a sorcerer at Firelink Shrine, we immediately have to get to Undead Burg and do the jump into Lower Undead Burg to free Grix of Vinheim. We should be aware that this type of sorcerer build is worse than we would expect when playing normally, because a lot of souls are put into some other stats which do not really help the current character type. This is of course true for all character types and a result of the random feature of the level up system. Well, so I guess there could be some real struggle ahead of us. And we can also have a look into the rules for the other characters. If Vitality is our highest stat, we will play as the Survivor. This character can use any weapon except for archery, but the character is not allowed to wear any armor. The rings that have to be worn are the Ring of the Evil Eye to get HP from fallen enemies and the Tiny Beings ring to further increase HP. Next is the Pyromancer, when the attunement stat is highest. Obviously, we will have to use mainly pyromancies as our main weapon. The rings the Pyromancer has to go for are the Bellowing Dragoncrest ring and the Darkmoon Seance ring. As for the Sorcerer, there are no real restrictions for the playstyle, but the aim is to acquire further pyromancies. If we don't have the Pyromancy Flame or pyromancies yet, obtaining these is a priority. In this case, this means that we have to free Laurentius of the Great Swamp as quickly as possible. The Tank is the character associated with highest endurance stats. For this character there are no restrictions for the use of specific weapons, but we will have to wear our heaviest armor in our inventory. Following the nature of this tank character, it makes sense that the required rings are Havel's ring and the Ring of Steel Protection. Apart from this, there are no restrictions for the playstyle. The Brute is the character for high strength values. As the brute, we are only allowed to use weapons who have strength as their highest requirement. This has consequences for the use of a bow. As nearly all bows have dexterity as their highest requirement, we are only allowed to use the Dragonslayer Great Bow or Guff's bow. Crossbows on the other hand are allowed, as they have higher requirements in strength than in dexterity. The required rings are the Red Tearstone Ring and Harvest Ring, and the brute is the first character with real playstyle restrictions. We have to fight two-handed at all times, and all enemies encountered must be killed. If dexterity is the highest stat, we will play as the assassin. Unsurprisingly, this means we can only use dexterity weapons, including most bows and nothing else. Because we want this character to be fast, the equipment load must be at or below 25%, which has implications for the type of armor we can wear. The required rings are the Darkwood Grain Ring to give us the Ninja Flip, and the Hornet Ring, which will boost damage from critical attacks like backstabs or riposts. The assassin should always try to go for critical attacks in combat, and aim to dodge attacks by rolling rather than using a shield. So defense in critical situations might become a lot trickier. If Face represents the highest stat, we will play as a Cleric. This character type has to mainly use miracles. Apart from this, we can use face weapons, which are the Artorias Greatsword, Astora's Sword, the Grand or the Crescent Axe. In terms of bows, we can only use the Darkmoon bow. The required rings are the Ring of the Sun's Firstborn and the Darkmoon Seance Ring. There are no direct playstyle restrictions, but the aim is to acquire more miracles. If we don't have a talisman or miracles yet, obtaining these is a priority, which at least initially is pretty easy to achieve for the Cleric. Finally, the last character is the Doombringer, which is the character defined by high resistance stats. As Doombringer, we can only use weapons with auxiliary effects of either bleed, poison, toxic or curse. We should try to get the Spike Shield, and in terms of the armor, we must acquire Thornset. For the rings, one slot must be used for either Blood Bite, Poison Bite or Curse Bite ring, which can be helpful to work against the buildup of some of the negative effects that come along with specific weapons, like the Life Hunt size. The second ring must be the Blue Tearstone ring. There are no playstyle restrictions for the Doombringer, except of course for bringing doom to all their enemies. So those were the explicit rules for each of the characters. To not get lost, there are some guidelines and info sheets that can be used for each character type. We can click on the Plan Information button to see what this includes. In general, this defines what the character has to do or where to go for being able to fulfill the rules set out. All those points can be seen as a guide for the specific character to help them to achieve their goals, but also to remind them of their duties. But for this short introduction, I won't go through all the points, but quickly skip through the plans of all characters. Whoever is interested in having a closer look at them can just pause the video and check them out. So finally, let's have a quick look at the general rules, which we can access by clicking the General button. These rules apply to all characters as they explain in detail how to level up. We can see that there are not many rules, so this is pretty simple, but some things must be clarified to guarantee that the player cannot cheese the game and be able to play a character they feel most comfortable with. The first rule, as previously said, states that we have to level up with all available souls when changing a bonfire. Making this mandatory guarantees that the player cannot keep the same character if they feel comfortable with it. The player also has to level with 0 available souls. The reason for this is that even with 0 souls, the character type can change if we have several stats at the same highest level. If we level under these circumstances with 0 available souls, the program chooses randomly from the stats with the same level value, excluding the current one. This even means that under these circumstances, a character change is guaranteed. Second, after a boss fight, we have to level up at the next bonfire encountered, even if this is the bonfire we did come from. Note that this was not mandatory according to the first rule, where in general we only have to level if we change the bonfire. The third rule says that soul items cannot be used to level up. Those soul items can only be used to level up weapons or to buy items that are essential to improve the current character. This is a useful rule because otherwise we would have to start farming for being able to progress with certain characters like the Sorcerer or Pyromancer, which require quite a lot of souls. And finally, some clarification about the rings. If available, the character-specific rings must be equipped. If none of the rings are available, one of the two has to be acquired as quickly as possible. This is not really relevant for the early game because there we just follow the character plan which will quickly guide us to one of the rings. But if we are further into the game and a change of character occurs, we probably want to fulfill a later point along the plan, because we are already at the right location to do so. This is fine, as long as the player has at least one required ring. However, having none of the required rings cannot be allowed, because this might modify the intended gameplay too much. Therefore, in this case, which will probably not happen that often, we will have to stop doing whatever we were doing and first get one of the two required rings. So you see, these rules are not too complicated, but there are a lot of points to keep in mind. So let's dive right in and see how this plays out.